work after this morning, when in this morning we listen the messages of religious leaders about our work, and also a very important witness, young and also non-young people, about peace employment. And then we now can see together the realistic street for a new disarmament. And my dear Massimo Sapielli will, with you, conduct this talk with you about this item, as we have prepared with Arnold Cohen and with you in this day. Thank you for your participation and for your clever and important suggestion that you can give us to do a new nuclear peace season. Thank you, all you, Arnold, you, Alexi, Roman, Thomas, Ivana, also I remember Dennis, hearing, world hearing. Thank you for your participation. Well, and we are in Assisi, listen to you. Thank you very much for your work. Welcome in Assisi. Thank you.
So, good afternoon to distinguished guests hereby and online connected. My name is Massimo Sapielli. I'm a nuclear engineer. I used to work for more than 40 years at the NEA, the Italian energy research body, and then as a nuclear consultant of Foreign Affairs Ministry. I belong to the board of Comitato per una Civiltà dell'Amore under the presidency of Mr. Rotunno. And let me introduce the main topics of this roundtable. This seminar roundtable is intended to continue the dialogue and the initiatives initiated by the Committee of Civilization of Love at the Assisi Roundtable for Nuclear Peace since 2023 until the more recent seminars in Assisi on September 15th and November 8th, and in Rome at LUMSA University on December 11th, 2025, together with the Assisi Strategic Forum. Here in Assisi, in this International Roundtable for Nuclear Peace, we will dialogue with experts, with you, experts from Russian Federation and the United States of America and Italy. We, as the Committee for the Civilization of Love, and together with representatives of the civil society. We, from here, reiterate the need for nuclear peace, for a shared commitment among Christians and non-Christians to nuclear disarmament and the consequent conversion of the nuclear weapons into energy useful to humanity, thus promoting, through a new culture of peace and cooperation, the civilization of love, of the Father of all. So, the Pope Leo XIV recently turned his attention to international security, recalling the New START Treaty, signed in 2010 by the Presidents of the United States and the Russian Federation, which expired on Thursday, February the 6th. So Pope Leo highlighted that the agreement represented an important step in limiting the proliferation of nuclear weapons, and reaffirmed his encouragement for all constructive efforts in support of disarmament and mutual trust. And he said, I issue an urgent appeal that this instrument not be allowed to lapse without seeking to ensure a concrete and effective follow-up. This is for us the global priority today, to relaunch the spirit and the message from the Holy See, and this is the main issue for opening this talk with the first guest, who is Arnold Cohen, who is the responsible coordinator of the global priority and the priorities, and has collaborated with us since 2023 by joining the experts from America and from Russia in this objective to reach the global nuclear peace in the world. So I leave the floor to Arnold Cohen by posing this question. Is this our global priority today? The peace in the world, the nuclear peace, the conversion, the disarmament. Please, Arnold. Arnold, we can't hear you now. Maybe you have to switch on your microphone, or there is some, because we don't hear from you now.
You can't hear me now.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, yes.
One moment, please.
We can hear now.
Good. I would like to begin by saying that, yes, of course, this is a global priority to work toward disarmament. But I feel that in the period, the recent period, both during and before and after the expiration of New START, I think of one thing in particular. It's a year's anniversary right now, more or less, of the passing of Dr. Sergei Rogov, who was long affiliated with the Russian Academy of Sciences and many other organizations. And I think that on this year's anniversary, it is fitting to remember the tireless work of Dr. Rogov, and also an American colleague of his who died almost 5 years ago, Major General William F. Burns, because these two individuals, at a time like this in particular, I really wish they were still with us, because they had an example of tireless work, absolutely tireless work over decades to do what is possible to create openings for concrete gains on nuclear disarmament issues. They tried many things over their long lives, and a lot of them did not work, but some of them did work, and some of them continued with groups of people who are, one of whom was with us today, certainly Dr. Gromyko, who was a good friend of Sergei Rogov. And I think those examples, those inspirational examples, need to be followed more than any one thing at a time. Because the problem with the situation now is people could easily become discouraged at the lack of progress, at the almost, going backwards in terms of nuclear weapons. And I think that people who work the way that Dr. Rogov and General Burns did over very long periods of time, one needs to look back at them and say that their examples have to be followed. Because the real problem, the problem of pessimism, the problem of other issues in the world. I mean, we see now, of course, it's not just another issue, it's the fundamental issue of the war in Ukraine, which is not something that has helped. It's been the opposite effect in terms of nuclear weapons and simply creating a very negative atmosphere. And so I think that the key thing that I would say, and this has to be our example, not only here in Assisi, but anywhere else that we travel to collaborate with people, is to do whatever is possible to continue these types of dialogues and informal conversations. I could come back and say some more things later. I think that in terms of step-by-step work, examples of what could be done with the exploration of New START, encouraging efforts to not expand nuclear arsenals and to have mutual restraints wherever possible. We've said this before, and certainly these examples can be circulated now. But I think that the examples of Dr. Rogoff and General Burns have to be followed up front in our minds and in our students. So I think I will turn the floor over to the chair. I'd be certainly very interested to hear, in particular, Dr. Gromyko and Dr. Lumpkin. But I think that these types of informal activities really have to have a much higher priority than ever.
Okay, Arnold. So I think that the spirit of the New START treaty between the United States and Russia, the goal is to maintain the dialogue to achieve the nuclear peace, not through competition, but through cooperation, towards a true civilization of love, which is the utmost importance in today's globalized world. So now about this opportunity and possibility of dialogue, informally, as you said, is the open topic to discuss with Alexei Gromyko. Alexei Gromyko is director of the Institute of Europe, the Russian Academy. And he has another friend of Assisi, another friend of Civilization of Love, has collaborated with us also in the past. And as I said, the corresponding member of the Russian Academy of Sciences. And so I ask I propose this question to Alexei. Alexei is listening. Can you spend some words about this problem of New START, restarting, and about the cooperation in this field? Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. Rotuno, dear moderator, distinguished speakers, distinguished guests. First of all, I would like to say that I'm grateful to the organizers of the forum for inviting me and for making it possible for me to contribute further to the cause of arms control and disarmament. Also, I would like to thank Dr. Arnold Cohen for paying tribute to Sergei Rogov and William Burns. Indeed, I was lucky to work together with Sergei for a considerable amount of time on arms control and military risk reduction. And besides many other things, together we participated in the Assisi roundtables for nuclear peace. Sergei passed away 1 year ago in February 2025, but the legacy of his tireless efforts to make the world a safer place lives on. Also, I fully support Mr. Rotuno and Dr. Cohen, who prior to the seminar singled out the ominous importance of the fact that on the 5th of February this year, the New START treaty between the United States and Russia expired. That means that now there are no nuclear arms control agreements between Moscow and Washington. But let me say that the situation is even worse. Since 1972, when the first SALT treaty was signed by the United States and the USSR, there were periods with no nuclear treaties like now. For example, that happened from 1977, when SALT I expired, until 1979, when SALT II was signed. But the difference is that the two nuclear superpowers at that time continued to conduct negotiations on nuclear limitations. Of course, we know that the United States did not ratify SALT II, but both Moscow and Washington, by and large, for the next 5 years, adhered to its commitments. From 1985, arms control negotiations were resumed, and in 1987, the INF Treaty was signed. In 1991, START I Treaty followed. In 1992, START II, and in 2010, the New START. Also in 1995, the NPT Treaty was prolonged indefinitely, and in 1996, the CTB Treaty was signed. So, from the 5th of February, 2026, not only the New START became a thing of the past, but there are no ongoing negotiations between Russia and the United States. The non-proliferation treaty is under intensive pressure. The nuclear test ban treaty is under intensive pressure. What we have in recent days, starting in fact from yesterday, we have some weak signals coming from Vienna, from the UN Conference on Disarmament. Let's hope that there will be some further development. Just to recall that 1 week before the 5th of February, the doomsday clock was set by the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists at 85 seconds to midnight, and this is the worst record in history of the clock. Following the expiration of the New START, Russia and the United States are now free to deploy more than 1,550 nuclear warheads and can also increase the number of deployed intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and heavy bombers to carry these warheads beyond the 700 permitted under the treaty. On 16 October last year, the Russian president put forward a proposal to extend the limits of the missiles and warheads embedded in the New START for 1 more year after its expiration. Well, we know very well that the treaty did not allow any more extensions and therefore could not be prolonged. Regrettably, in response to Putin's proposal, Donald Trump in October made only one brief, although positive, comment. Later on, he gave an interview to the New York Times, claiming that a better treaty could be reached with Russia and also that China should be involved. Trump was more specific than in October, when the only thing he said was that the idea is good. However, that was done in his typical ambiguous and confused manner. Trump mentioned several times a possibility to extend the treaty, not the ceilings. He said that China should be a part of it, that it can be concluded with Russia without China, and also that it would be great for the US, Russia, and China to conduct the best possible denuclearization. So, another daunting difficulty is that the New START, by all accounts, cannot be replaced by a new similar treaty between Russia and the United States. And the reason is very simple. We are moving into the multipolar nuclear world. The US wants China to be counted in, and Russia wants France and the United Kingdom to be counted in. And if we involve China, then I'm sure that China would want India to be counted in, and India would want Pakistan to be counted in. So, in this situation, it seems urgent that Russia and the United States restart talks on a new strategic stability framework and nuclear arms control at the earliest possible date. If they don't do it, there is almost no chance that other nuclear powers may be involved in strategic talks. The nuclear risks, from my point of view, potentially may emerge from one more side. In Europe, France is active in promoting the idea of a European autonomous extended nuclear deterrence. NATO nuclear sharing missions are involving increasing number of countries, especially in Northern Europe. In the United States, Trump launched the Golden Dome program, which is a follow-up to the Reagan's Star Wars initiative. And the Golden Dome program endangers one of the fundamental approaches of Russia to strategic stability. And this is that strategic offensive and strategic defensive systems are inherently interlocked. Trump has also announced a program of the Golden Fleet with 2025 Trump-class battleships at its core. And each of these ships is to carry 12 launch tubes with sea-launched cruise nuclear missiles, Slicker Man. So, in my opinion, in the following months, the goal of the global arms control community will be management of strategic instability. And that would be much better than management of confrontation. To a large extent, peaceful coexistence in the 1970s was management of strategic instability, and it served us well. There is one more substantial concern. For the time being, even against the backdrop of the New START expiration, Russia and the United States do not doubt each other's commitment to the established rules of the game in the sphere of nuclear deterrence. Of course, it may also get out of control if the New START is not followed by something tangible this year or the next one. But the real problem already now, the burning problem, are local conventional conflicts involving nuclear factor. In other words, involving directly or indirectly different nuclear powers. Still, we have relative strategic nuclear stability, but a conventional mix of confrontation and instability. From this point of view, our main attention in the immediate future should be paid simultaneously to nuclear and conventional risks. The local conflicts, especially in Europe, but also in the Middle East, South Asia, and the Far East, if not harnessed, may spill over quickly to the nuclear domain according to the ladder of escalation. And my last point is on the traditional dilemma of technology or a mindset. I think that the latter a mindset still is in the driving seat. Of course, technologies to a certain extent can shape the political and military thinking. But the history of the 20th century, including the history of the nuclear age, demonstrated that human beings managed once again to put under control technologies and found ways to manage geopolitical competition on a new technological level. Sure, there are important caveats. In 1945, there were just 2 nuclear powers. Now we have 9. And the idea of friendly proliferation seems to be spreading. In conventional military technologies, there is a revolution going on due to precision, hypersonics, drones, cyber, and AI, which all in all is now more destabilizing than something new in the nuclear sphere. But the latter one, the nuclear sphere, may also go nasty and very quickly. So in the conventional sphere, we need something similar to the CFE Treaty Vienna document and SCBMs. And in the nuclear domain, including in Europe, or maybe first of all in Europe, minimum what we need: political commitments to moratorium on the INF systems and on the ceilings of the New START. And again, the sooner the United States and Russia resume consultations, not to mention negotiations on strategic stability, the sooner this issue is again in the focus of the P5 group, the better. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, Alexei. Then we'll move again with a second round of questions. So, but what you said in some way worry for us because about this enlargement of the number of countries that will be involved in this nuclear issue. And I want to move to Roman Lumkin. Roman Lumkin is the Director Institute for Europe and head of a Center for the Studies of Problem of Religion and Society, by underlying that peoples who call themselves Christians possess really today approximately 90% of the world's nuclear weapons arsenals, despite the fact that in recent decades we have experienced the real possibility of eliminating them and converting them into energy useful for all. So today is 4 years that the anniversary, let's say, of the beginning of the war in Europe, and so I wanted to have a thought, an opinion from Roman about this, about the role of Christians, and about the war in Europe, and today the anniversary of that. Thank you, Roman, for your coming and your intervention. Please.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Dear Professor Atuna, dear Chairman, dear colleagues, friends, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you very much for invitation. That International Center of Religious Leaders and Nuclear Experts at the ICC Roundtable for Nuclear Peace. And certainly special thanks to Armi Cohen, to Professor Cohen for such good words about our colleague academician Sergei Rogov, because he was very just cold-minded in his research and very emotional during our discussions on that roundtable in Assisi, and also previously during the discussions between religious leaders and scholars on the seminars organized by Global Priorities just before that in Assisi. And it was certainly very very important to feel that atmosphere. As it mentioned, as it mentioned in the presentation and the introduction by Professor Atuna, it's the creating of atmosphere, of the culture of peace and cooperation. That created by that civilization of love. And that is very important because it's evident that it's more difficult to manage conflicts between countries, between societies, cultures, and ideologies in the multipolar world. When we are just inside many conflicts. And also one of the key ideas in the introduction by Professor Atuna that it's a risk becoming accustomed to the disappearance of a spirit and the meaning of a new start and other treaties. And certainly we are not at the risk. We just accustomed to the situation when there is the absence of any negotiations and discussions between both sides. And from the point of view of Christians, of Christian believers and Christian churches, it's very important to go for the path of freeing humanity from the fear of nuclear war and moving towards a realistic civilization, not of hatred and ruthless competition, but of love. And that is one of the aims of the round table for nuclear peace in Assisi. And I think that the creation of atmosphere of dialogue and peace is also one of the main goals for Christian churches. It's also just remarkable that all the message of peace appeared in the land of St. Francis, because St. Francis, in his life, he paid attention to every just human beings, and to all creatures of God, under no circumstances, and for him. It wasn't important just who was that man of what status or what political party and or what nationality. And I think that this is a very important a lesson from St. Francis. And his life, just to be open to the dialogue and to overcome this enemy syndrome, as we have in current the politics. And I want to make another big comparison between the speeches of recent speeches of Patriarch Kirill and Pope Leo. Was Patriarch Kirill just appealed to, for example, to one of the global summits, the global climate summits, and Patriarch Kirill stated that, among other things, the idea that humans are the soul and only masters of the universe is failed. This idea has led to numerous technological disasters, the extinction of entire species of flora and fauna, and climate change, and high risk of large-scale nuclear conflict that threatens the existence of our planet. And only united voice of leaders of traditional religions will be heard by those responsible for decision making and will contribute to the salvation of God's creation. And also, you mentioned during the conference the special appeal of Pope Leo on February 4, and on that year about the expiry of New START treaty. Pope Leo said that the current situation requires that everything possible be done to avert a new arms race that would further threaten peace among nations. It is more urgent than ever to substitute the logic of fear and distrust with a shared ethos capable of guiding choices towards the common good, and to make peace a treasure to be cherished by all. And that appeal, Pope Leo began mentioning the brothers and sisters in Ukraine, for example, as other appeals of Pope Leo and Pope VC. And I think that it's very important. It's time to pay attention for different sides of the conflict, for brothers and sisters in Ukraine, in some regions of Russia, in the zones of conflict in general. In the last year, we also on that conference paid attention to the social and religious solutions, social solutions for the conflict, for Ukrainian crisis and ongoing conflict between Russia and the West. And one of the most obvious steps that I mentioned also in the last year were during humanitarian activities, and for example, visits to conflict zones jointly by representatives of academic circles and religious leaders, Russian Orthodox Church, Catholic Church. It's the kind of complex of diplomatic and humanitarian work, including assistance to displaced persons and certainly to children, as already this work was started by Cardinal Lupi in 2023, and certainly all that had to be continued. Also, one of the interesting suggestions was about recommendation of one of the participants of a round table in Assisi to establish ministries of peace within the structures or governments of members of states in the European Union, or departments for peace and reconciliation. And that was mentioned in the message of one of the bishops, that this is one of the steps to overcome the sovereignty of war. As one of the speakers said, for us, for Europe, for the Jews, for the Palestinians, for America, this means only one thing: overcoming and abandoning the enemy syndrome on which modern domestic and international politics is built. But it is also useful not to see enemies in our ideological opponents in the new global order. And one historical example that I guess could help to attract of religious leaders, and especially Christian leaders, to this peacemaking process. Already in the Soviet time, after the beginning of Cold War, in 1947 and in 1948, in Moscow was held all Orthodox conference on peace that also just declared the peaceful goals for eliminating from nuclear weapons, and then it was a part of a peacemaking policy in the Soviet Union. And also in 1958 was founded Christian Peace Conference in Eastern Europe. And one of the presidents of that Christian Peace Conference was Metropolitan Nicodim Rotov. And Metropolitan Nicodim Rotov is famous as a teacher, as a tutor of current head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kiev. And at that time, Christian Peace Conference in Europe was one of the main institutes standing for non-proliferation process for peacemaking in Germany. So I think that the terms is a political thing that caused by fears, and Christian ethics have to build the peaceful world without fears. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roman, so much. Even if the communication was not so good, so sometimes we lost you. But anyway, we have catch the sense, the main sense of what you said in your conversation. So now I want to introduce Ivana Hughes. Ivana Hughes, she is president of Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, senior lecturer at the Columbia University, and expert of nuclear treaties, such as the Nuclear Weapon Prohibition Treaty. And the question to her is exactly this one, that we are going now to the review conference of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which will be taken in April 2027, this April. And so we come to this important conference without any treaty, any agreement between the big powers. And so we are, let's say, naked. We come naked to this review conference. So the question is this, Ivana, what do you think about these 2 months missing to the conference? Just 2 months to, in some way, organize something as groups, as religious group, as institutional groups, to have, for example, a declaration like it was done in the past review conference, in which 5 nuclear powers make a common declaration. Now it seems too difficult to have something like that, but we can try something. What do you think about this point? Thank you, Ivana.
Thank you so much for the question. I want to thank you and Mr. Rotuno and all of the organizers for including me in this wonderful meeting. Really very, very happy to be with all of you, despite the fact that we really find ourselves in such a difficult and challenging moment. And I want to just begin the discussion a little bit by taking an even broader look about the challenges that we face in the world today, and then home in on why I think nuclear disarmament is, in fact, the first step out of what I call a world in chaos. And then I'm going to try to address your question. This really is a big year for disarmament. The 11th review conference of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, as has been said, will take place here in New York from April 27th to May 22nd. And then later in the year, at the end of November, we will also have the first review conference of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. So these are really two seminal events. The NPT review conference has always been a very important thing ever since those have been held since 1975. But in this moment, not only because of the immediate events that have been taking place and challenges, but also the last two conferences in 2015, they have been held every 5 years since the treaty entered into force in 1970. The 9th review conference was in 2015. The 10th one was supposed to take place in 2020, but didn't until 2022 because of COVID. And both of those conferences did not end in what is considered a successful outcome, a consensus document that all states parties would have agreed to. And many of the challenges there, I would say, stem not from concerns about, say, nuclear energy or non-proliferation. Those are two of the pillars of the treaty, but really the concerns having to do with the disarmament obligations of the nuclear weapon states, which frankly have not done their part. And nuclear disarmament really is an obligation according to Article 6 of the NPT. But let me say why I think this is important, not just to fulfill treaties, but why I think this is an essential step in a world that's not just facing nuclear annihilation, but a world that is facing a multitude of threats. So the globe is warming at an alarming pace. I would say that's matched perhaps only by the rate of progress of artificial intelligence. And I would also say that the jury may still be out on even the qualitative sign of AI's contributions to society. We have divisions between the haves and the not-haves within and across societies. These divisions really echo with the vibes of the Gilded Age, particularly here in the United States. And in many ways, all other kinds of social disagreements are actually keeping the crowds busy arguing on social media and perhaps elsewhere. We also see birth rates collapsing across the developed world. This is leading to the degradation of the family unit, which is an essential building block of thriving societies. And again, just to underscore the obvious of what we're here to discuss, there is the possibility of nuclear annihilation lurking in the background, threatening really at any moment to disrupt the life chain that has led to all of us being here, following what I would say billions of years of our planet's history. So, of course, this threat has really just multiplied in recent years, in recent months, in recent weeks. We're literally talking about the end of the expiration of New START just earlier this month. There are threats in the United States, very open threats and statements about resumption of nuclear testing. And there are clearly proliferation and modernization efforts underfoot of various sorts. Let me just say that when I teach, so I have, in addition to my role at the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, I also teach young students, first-year college students at Columbia University, and my own children are 14, 20, and 24. So they're, these are young adults or just reaching that stage. And I also realize that we have many young people in the audience today. So allow me for a moment just to reflect on a time when I was a young person, which was in the 1990s. I actually came to the United States as a foreign exchange student my senior year in high school in 1994. At the time, my own country of Yugoslavia was falling apart. So I knew and experienced chaos at the national level. But I think that what we're experiencing today is different because chaos seems to be the state of everything from family to local to national to international levels. And it's precisely because so many things, so many different things contribute to the chaos that the existential threat of nuclear weapons and really the need for nuclear disarmament are largely out of view, forgotten, ignored, or worse, justified. And really, when it comes to this topic, things quite simply could not be more different today than they were in the 1990s. We've heard about some of the history of especially arms control treaties between the United States and Russia at the end of the Cold War, near the end of the Cold War, and after. I think it's been mentioned that today the doomsday clock of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists stands at 85 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been to this kind of purported midnight of nuclear annihilation or human destruction of the planet. But back in 1994, when I came to the United States, the clock stood at 17 minutes to midnight. We have gone back, on a time and a moment when we actually did accomplish some nuclear disarmament and a lot of really, really great things, but we just didn't get the job done. So why does it matter in some sense when so much else is going in the wrong direction? Why does nuclear disarmament matter so much right now? And again, I want to just sort of make the point that this really has to be the first step in unraveling the chaos. So we've heard some of the facts, and I'm just going to repeat them, especially for young people. We've heard some of the facts of where we are in the nuclear age. Currently, 9 countries in the world possess about 12,500 nuclear warheads. Nearly 90% of that is in the arsenals of the United States and Russia. It used to be far more than 90%, but now it's less than that. Most of these weapons are more powerful than the bombs that were used in attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, some much more powerful. The states are United States, Russia, United Kingdom, France, China, Israel, India, Pakistan, and North Korea. And I would posit that all of these states are involved in either hot wars and conflicts like Ukraine and what's been ongoing in the Middle East, or in adversary tensions and potential conflicts. And while there is, of course, always a danger that a nuclear weapon could be used deliberately, in times of such widespread conflict and tensions, arguably, in my opinion, a bigger worry may be that an accident or a miscalculation will lead to the use of a nuclear weapon, quite simply because a leader might believe their country is under attack or is about to be attacked. This really could happen in the fog of war. This could happen due to a technical glitch alone. There's obviously now some risk about the involvement of AI in any of the decisions. And I would just again posit that the risk of the use of a single nuclear weapon is both real and high. What it happens in Washington, D.C., they regularly have something that's often referred to as war games. In those war games, they sort of test out different scenarios. And my understanding is that these war games have shown repeatedly that the use of a single nuclear weapon, again, under many different scenarios, would lead to a full-blown nuclear war. It's not just that most of these simulations suggest a spiral into a nuclear war, it's that all of them do. And part of this is a result of longstanding policies such as launch on warning, but part of it is due to even the timescales involved in such decisions, which in many ways continue to get shorter. So let me again take one more step back and just say why nuclear weapons are so different from other weapons. Part of that is that a single weapon can threaten millions of people. In concert, they threaten to kill hundreds of millions of people in a matter of minutes, not days or hours or weeks or years. It is just incomprehensible. And at the same time, nuclear war would actually alter the environmental conditions on the planet by destroying the ozone layer, altering the climate in most dramatic ways, something we refer to as nuclear winter. And nuclear winter and the resulting nuclear famine alone are estimated to result in the deaths of billions of people around the globe, depending on the exact scenario of the nuclear war that takes place. And this, quite simply, would be the end of the world as we know it. And for this reason alone, nuclear weapons must be eliminated. I'll quote here US President John F. Kennedy, who in his address to the United Nations General Assembly in 1961 stated something to the effect of, "We must abolish nuclear weapons before they abolish us." So let me just kind of come back to not just the threat of nuclear war, but what it means for the kind of world we want. I would say that there's more to the nuclear threat than the mere possibility of annihilation. There are the wasted resources. I think that this was a matter of some discussion in the earlier session. The wasted resources in all of the nuclear armed states, but especially in the United States, which actually spends more on nuclear weapons than all other nuclear armed states combined. There are people who have been harmed since the beginning of the nuclear age. This is not just the victims and survivors of the atomic bombings in Japan, but also communities around the world who were subjected to the fallout, radiation, and displacement due to nuclear testing. Today, just the fact that we're even discussing the possibility of the resumption of nuclear testing is absolutely incomprehensible. But let me make the final point that there really is this insidious way in which the notion that nuclear weapons keep us safe, and I posit that nothing could be further from the truth, actually undermines our ability to cooperate genuinely and to treat each other, and by each other I mean states of the world, countries of the world, to treat each other as collaborators in addressing various threats to humanity and the planet and in creating a better world. What we're currently doing is actually basing the foundation of human security on threats of annihilation. And I strongly believe that until such thinking is eradicated, until resources are redirected for human needs inside the nations that possess nuclear weapons and beyond, and genuine cooperation is established at the international level, we will continue to not just be in the state of chaos, but to teeter on the brink of the ultimate destruction. So now that I laid out all the negative and scary and kind of devastating possibilities, let me try to end on a positive note. I was really, really inspired by the remarks this morning, especially from young people, about the importance of hope. My organization, the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, last year organized 2 conferences, one in Santa Barbara and one in Hiroshima. And this was all done with our partners at the Japanese organization Soka Gakkai International, which is a Buddhist organization. The symposia were actually organized in honor of the founder and longtime leader of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, David Krieger, and also the longtime leader and founder of Soka Gakkai, Daisaku Ikeda. The 2 of them, at the dawn of this century, had written a book called Choose Hope, in which they discussed the work of peace, the work of nuclear disarmament. The book was written as a dialogue in which they talked to each other in relatively short segments, paragraphs or a couple of paragraphs at a time. And they sort of go back and forth on the importance of choosing hope. And I want to say that it's not just important that we choose hope because we find ourselves in such a challenging time. It's also important to recognize that in previous decades, when there really was progress in nuclear disarmament, it occurred during some of the most challenging times. The Partial Test Ban Treaty, which I don't think has been mentioned so far, was negotiated by Kennedy and Khrushchev in 1963. This was a huge achievement and something that was absolutely played a critical role in both setting us on a path of arms control and disarmament, but also had this kind of immediate effect in ending the atmospheric tests that had had such devastating consequences. And then, of course, we heard about the efforts in the 1980s, the collaboration between Gorbachev and Reagan, and the way that continued into the 90s and so on. Also, of course, the 80s were initially were a very, very challenging time. Even just in 1983, there were 2 really close calls, the false alarm, the Soviet false alarm, as well as the Able Archer incident. If young people are interested, you can read more about these. So we sort of took, I don't want to say took advantage, but it was in those kind of crisis critical, really difficult times that we were able to make progress. And I strongly believe in choosing hope. I strongly also believe in the absolutely essential role the religious communities can have on this. And I'm really inspired by so much that has come from the Catholic Church, from Pope Francis, from Pope Leo the 14th. And I hope that we can continue to bring this issue to the forefront of people's minds in religious communities worldwide, and to make progress, which is so very essential at this moment. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivana, for your long speech, but very interesting, really. And now let me introduce Mr. Thomas Cochrane, who has been a former director of nuclear program at the Natural Resources Defense Council. He's a very friend of us, and a consultant of many institutions like Columbia University and governmental bodies. And he has been our guest in the last conference we had here in Assisi. And he was an actor, a very important actor in the program Megaton to Megawatts. And my question is this one. So now, in this moment, is possible to speak still about a program like megatons to megatons to megawatts today, or is it only a wishful thinking? Because as we spoke this morning, megatons to megawatts was a program implemented between US and Russia since 1990s on the basis of a project proposed by the Committee of Civilization of Love at the end of the Cold War. Now the program should be the conversion of the military plutonium, so to be eliminated, and the conversion to fuel for the electricity production, the remaining HAU and the plutonium. So it's possible to speak about in these times about a new megatons to megawatts program for you, Thomas.
Well, thank you for the introduction. And before I answer your question, I want to thank Arnold for remembering Sergei Rogov and William Burns. And I would add two more individuals who passed away recently who were in the same mold. And that is, one is Evgeny Velikov at the Soviet Academy, who I worked with in the 80s, but he did wonderful work through Gorbachev. And another is Richard Garwin, who passed away recently, who, in my judgment, was, and many people's judgment, was a real genius. And he spent most of his career working on arms control issues into his 90s. With that introduction, let me turn to your question. Dr. Gromyko has given us a wonderful walk through the history of the arms control agreements that we've had in the past and the challenges we have today. I would turn, when you look at most of those achievements, historians like to normally give credit to the leaders who signed the agreements, either Reagan and Gorbachev or Clinton and or Bush and so forth, when in fact, all of those, virtually all of those cases were the work of coalitions of people who brought those issues up to the leadership and convinced the leadership to endorse the agreements or finalize the agreements. Now, here we are today, confronted with essentially the same problem. How do we get to the leadership, and what issue do we take to the leadership? So we need to sort of analyze that, at least a couple of issues. One is, what issue do we want to take up? How do we do that? And who is the best person or persons to get to the leadership to try to convince them to initiate a new arms control agreement or continue with the past agreements? I think what I really like about this program that we're involved in here is the efforts to get to the leadership through Pope Leo. I think he is the best person today to get to, at least to get to President Trump. Now, my own personal view is Trump suffers from some serious psychiatric conditions that are not helpful to us in trying to convince him to do something useful. I think he's suffers from serious antisocial personality disorders. He's a sociopath. But I think he can be persuaded by someone who he sees as an important person, such as Pope Leo. And therefore, I think we should continue to try to get Pope Leo to send the messages that need to be sent to try to convince Trump to do the right thing. I don't know who the best conduit is on the Russian side, and I leave it to my Russian colleagues to help in that regard. Then there's the issue of what is most likely today to be receptive by these leaders and result in some significant arms control change or agreement. And I think I think Arnold has done a great job of summarizing what the messages are. I want to pick two of those. One is to try to convince the leadership in the U.S. and Russia to continue to abide by New START, even though it is no longer in force. And the other is the issue of converting weapons materials to civil energy production. And that, I think, those are two issues that I think are very worthy of our continued advocacy. And so we should focus on how to get the message to the leadership. And I would say with respect to the use of weapon materials, highly enriched uranium and plutonium, to convert those to civil reactor fuels, we have the advantage of the success of the megatons to megawatt program that was, as the noted earlier, was initiated by the Italians and brought to really finalized by Tom Neff and his interactions with Viktor Mikhailov in the early 90s. And then it took from there 10 years or so to really make it happen. But that, I think, because of the current situation with regard to the Russian economy, would be an attractive program on the Russian side, and also should be an equally attractive program on the American side. And so we should focus again on that as the program to take forward and try to convince the leadership to endorse it. Now, I think the issue of uranium, blending down uranium and converting it into civil fuel is a lot easier than trying to do the same with plutonium, although I think both programs are essential. Plutonium has some issues that uranium does not have, and that comes out of the MOX program. Of course, if you use the plutonium in reactors, particularly in breeder reactors, fast reactors, you're going to breed more plutonium than you burn. And so there's some advantages to making MOX fuel for thermal reactors rather than breeder reactors if your goal is to get it out of the weapons program and into something that's safer. But I think we should try to do both and also try to keep the New START alive. And I'll stop there and listen to others who are more interesting and creative than I am.
Thomas, you want to add something? Not.
Excuse me?
No, over, finished?
Finished.
Okay, for the moment.
Finished.
Because we have
moment.
we have a second round and maybe a third round if we get time to do that. And about this possible commercial agreement between Russia and the USA, like the past megatons to megawatts agreement, what is the opinion about our speakers about? So it's possible to have economical convenience to match the needs of US and Russia about the conversion of military plutonium, military material into fuel for civil reactors. Is possible? Is a topic still now? Is possible this one, or is something far away from the current situation? So, what is your opinion about a possible agreement today between the two countries? Because it should be economically very convenient, this conversion, as far as we have calculated as civilization of love, scientists, and so it's possible. It's a good proposal, and at this moment, some let's say commercial agreement between the two countries, or not, in your opinion? Arnold, I should begin with Arnold again. Arnold. Arnold, we don't hear you, can't hear you, since your microphone maybe should be off, on.
One second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Right now, I know one of the experts working with us for many years, old Associate General Burns, was involved, for decades actually, for megatons, for megawatts, and I don't know the information on this firsthand, but the expert that I mentioned worked on this for the U.S. government for decades, and basically the atmosphere at present is very, very negative. It doesn't seem to be much chance right now. I mean, in the future, we don't know what the future holds, but at least that's, I made this inquiry because I know that we were asked this question in the past. So I'm sorry that's not positive, but it's the best that I'm really capable of offering. I mean, right now, I think I was grateful for the history given by Alexei Gromyko going back to the early 1970s, when of course the atmosphere was extremely dangerous, yet talks were going on. And now what we're faced with is a very negative atmosphere, and so something going still beyond that in terms of what's going to do with freeing resources from the from money that's spent on nuclear weapons. I mean, there just doesn't seem to be at the moment a huge chance for that. Now, it doesn't mean there won't be something a few years from now, but at least for now, it's not a very positive atmosphere so far as I'm able to determine by the experts we work with.
Okay, so Alexei Gromyko. Alexei?
Well, yes. I would be happy to be mistaken, but to my knowledge, Russia has halted all cooperation with the United States on the plutonium project. If this is correct, please double check it. Last year, Russia withdrew from the program. So, for the time being, the main goal of those Russian specialists who work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in the Ministry of Defense, in the broader expert community, is to try to convince our counterparts in the United States that we should compartmentalize. That was something what both the United States and Russia alternatively did not pick up in the period from 2022 to 2024. But now we know very well that, a number of consultations, meetings, both public and confidential, have taken place in the last year. But still, we know at the same time that the consultations, not to mention negotiations, on strategic stability between Russia and the United States have not resumed. And Moscow, to put it mildly, was really very frustrated when the proposal to extend the ceilings of the New START was not responded in a positive way by the United States. Moreover, judging from the recent statements by Christopher Yo and Thomas Dinano, we may barely expect some tangible and effective steps taken by Washington in terms of practical further steps in the realm of strategic stability and arms control. It is clear that it will be impossible in the near future to involve China in bilateral, in what we got used to as bilateral negotiations between Russia and the United States. Maybe something is possible to be done in the P5 format. But what is destabilizing and what probably, please correct me if I'm wrong, have not been mentioned today, a very worrying narrative in Washington on nuclear testing. Christopher, you're directly accused not just China because of a certain earthquake in 2020, but even Russia, of not subcritical but supercritical tests, which, as far as I understand, for all specialists on nuclear testing on non-proliferation is absurd. So just to conclude with what I mentioned in my speech, that there were certain pronouncements yesterday in Vienna which may indicate that still there is some intention in Washington to move forward with consultations on strategic stability, both with Russia and China. And that ostensibly, I just saw it in Bloomberg today, not yet in Russian sources, that yesterday in Vienna, there were some discussions between the members of the US and Russian delegations at the conference on disarmament, some discussions on possible further steps in the realm of nuclear risk reduction. And that ostensibly today on Tuesday, the American team was planning to meet with the Chinese counterparts. Let me stop here.
Okay, thank you, Alexei. Roman, Roman, want to add something? Your opinion? No. So, Ivana, on this subject.
Yeah, let me just make a couple of comments from a kind of U.S. perspective on the Trump administration and sort of whether there's any hope of meaningful engagement. I mean, of course, we did see the summit in Alaska. That's better than what was going on with the Biden administration. But let me just say, make sort of two specific points. One is in what I would say the defense of the American people who as a whole voted Donald Trump into office. And I don't mean to say that they were right or that he's a good guy or any of that, but that I think at least part of that stemmed from the fact that in 2024, Donald Trump managed to present himself as the peace candidate. He was going to bring the war in Ukraine to an end. He was going to solve the Gaza problem. We have, of course, seen this administration violate international law on repeat occasions. We have seen him try to completely undermine the idea of the United Nations by forming this board of peace. I mean, it's really been just one disaster after another. And yet things were so bad, I think, on both economy and peace and war and peace issues in 2024 that the American people, or many of them, believed him. I didn't, but many people did. He won that election fair and square. And I think a lot of it is because American people actually do vote for peace candidates, or at least the ones who present themselves as such. The second thing I want to say about President Trump is that while obviously with notable exceptions, certainly JFK, who started out as very much a Cold Warrior and then turned towards peace, in particular after the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then brought about, as I said, with Khrushchev, the Partial Test Ban Treaty, gave a really inspiring speech on peace in 1963 at American University. that really should be, mandatory reading for every single leader of every single country, but in particular the United States and Russia. While we've had kind of a, sort of staying in line when it comes to nuclear weapons, with, again, notable exceptions, and even what Reagan was able to accomplish, Donald Trump is like if everyone has been here on nuclear disarmament, Donald Trump is like here, because he has simultaneously said that we need to denuclearize. He has made statements like nuclear weapons could destroy the world over and over again, and they cost too much money, and so on. And at the same time, this is the man who's threatening to resume nuclear testing. This is the man who, about New START, actually said, if it expires, it expires. Katrina vanden Heuvel, who's the publisher of The Nation, wrote in an article about this. She wrote, it sounds like he's talking about a bottle of milk, not about the last standing arms control treaty. If it expires, it expires. Who cares? It's not a big deal. And really, quite simply, someone you could imagine pushing the button, because he has decided that this is the right thing to do, and we know he has stated he's not bound by international law, he's bound by his own morality. So as much as the negatives really are just overwhelming, I try to, in that spirit of choosing hope, focus a little bit on that positive notion that he seems to actually realize how terrible nuclear weapons are, and he seems to even be willing to say that. I think the pressure needs to come. I love the suggestion of Pope Leo XIV, but even just more broadly religious leaders. I think the role of the general public is going to be essential in pushing us in the right direction. Whether we can achieve something during the Trump administration is obviously $1 million question, but maybe even just setting into motion things that could then be done in the post-Trump era. And we hope that there will be a post-Trump era. So thank you.
Thank you, Ivana. So now I want to go back to the proposal coming from Arnold that was submitted to the experts, to the speakers, and I ask Arnold to speak about, because from his proposal about practical steps to be taken from here on, and collect elements to bring to the Holy See, to the Pope, in order to involve the Holy See in these steps that Arnold has suggested, and that have been also endorsed by Thomas and by the other speakers. So Arnold, please, if you can explain your steps and then involve the other speakers on them. Thank you.
Well, I would propose a consolidation of first steps that I sent to Dr. Rotuno and the rest of the group last week, which is to say to endorse what Pope Leo said in early February with respect to New START and with respect to finding another agreement. That is the major issue before us now, and that should be in the center. The other things that I said today in my own presentation were more. They were in part personal things, with reminding everybody of the unofficial role over many years and commemoration of the passing of Dr. Rogoff and his colleague and the work of his colleague General Burns. I'm not sure that necessarily needs to be in the declaration, but it could be. I mean, it really could be in a declaration, and the other items that are in the material that I sent to the group, that was my own personal presentation, they could be there as well. But I think the fundamental issue is endorsement of this group of what Pope Leo has done. I think that my sense in seeing what the Vatican has said and what Pope Leo has said is that they are sticking to some very fundamental questions, trying to get some type of agreement in motion that could replace New Start, or at least calling for not violating the terms of New Start on the one hand, and on the other hand, working on the NPT review conference period in April and May. I think that right now there is a feeling that relations with, I mean, first of all, I think that what's in the material that I sent today and is obvious, it's nothing, nothing particular on my part. But the fact is that the Ukraine war, which has now gone on for 4 years, I mean, this has to be solved before there is going to be, I think, significant progress on nuclear weapons. I mean, there may be some short-term understandings that the situation doesn't become worse, but certainly the message that I'm getting, I mean, people aren't saying this officially, they're not saying this openly, but I think that that is the general feeling, that the Ukraine war really has to be solved in a meaningful way. So that's point one. I guess point two is, regardless of what we would prefer to see happen, the state of relations between the United States and Russia is such that it's hard to see that large measures are going to be possible in at least the near term, and I guess that means the next few years. I think what we saw before Trump came to power, which is to say, you know, in the Biden administration, that there were a lot of causes for concern with respect to the lack of really any meaningful proposals on the part of the Biden administration to take any significant steps. Things were just sort of stuck. And I think now, given relations within Europe, given relations with NATO and Russia and other questions, no one mentions Greenland, but I think that certainly, even if only tangentially, people aren't going to start debating this in an open setting. But I think these issues with respect to NATO would certainly, without people saying it, it certainly can have an effect on the question of what might be done about nuclear weapons in this atmosphere. So I think that the fundamental issue that should be focused on by this group is approving, and I sent a draft, I mean, you have it, of a statement that could be conveyed by this group with regard to supporting what Pope Leo is doing, what he tried to do, and I think there are a number of things there that have at least an immediate term plan. And in terms of the other questions, that informal talks should continue. This is a message for us, and so in any event, I'm happy to discuss this. It's just that, as I said, the fundamental issue is this group endorsing what Pope Leo has said. I mean, there is a question, you know, and I know there were questions with the other issues in terms of plutonium use, megatons for megawatts, et cetera. And I just think that the experts, you know, at least the ones who were involved in negotiations over the years, which is to say the people at least that I'm, you know, working with, have not been positive that there is much room to do that at this point. So I would certainly recommend that we stick to endorsement of what Pope Leo was doing, and then other issues of not violating the old New START agreement and not expanding nuclear arsenals.
Thank you, Arnold. So now I want to involve in this the other speakers, starting from Alexei again. What is your opinion about this proposal from Arnold? Alexei? Is still there, Alexei?
He left a message in the chat. I think he had to step away because he was losing his internet connection.
Okay.
So if you'd like, I can read the chat message, because maybe the people in the room would like to hear it. Dear colleagues, I'm approaching a district of Moscow where the internet connection may be weak or disappear. I would be happy to work on the text provided by Dr. Cohen if needed. Of course, before the Ukrainian crisis is settled, it would not be possible to move forward in a comprehensive way. But for the time being, it is necessary to do whatever is possible to preserve the contacts and channels which have serviced and to promote at least small steps in the sphere of arms control. I stay at your disposal. Sincerely, Alexei Gromyko.
Yes.
Thank you, Ivana, for speaking.
Yes, yes. Yes.
And
I certainly am
play,
in favor
Arnold,
of this.
please.
I mean, I certainly am in favor of Alexei's statement. I think that it's using different words and it's making it a lot simpler or somewhat simpler than what I was saying of just more detail. But I think that what he's saying is fundamentally what the reality is at the moment. That small steps are needed, and really the war in Ukraine has to be settled first before there's going to be anything more ambitious that could really be.
Roman, do you want to add something on this?
Yes, that would be good.
Yes, of course, I could add something, and I'm also sure that resolving of Ukrainian conflict is the first step. It's maybe just Russian perception of the whole conflict, and also it's a step to resume negotiations, to make them in more comprehensive way, and to create this atmosphere of understanding and dialogue between just our countries. And and the second, I think that that is very important idea of third of Alexei Gromyko, that in our multipolar world, we just approach into the situation when the negotiations around nuclear disarmament, it's not only the deal between the United States and Russia, but it's more the broad discussion between different nuclear countries, and certainly there are some threats and challenges on that way. But it will be more difficult than earlier when we could only just resume negotiations. It's very difficult just to resume negotiations just now in a way in that we just did that just 4 years ago, for example, or even just several years ago, or when in the beginning of 25, President Putin just asked Trump administration to have negotiations about the new START. So the time passed, and the time just went out. So we haven't time just now. And also one remark about the perception of the position of Holy See in current political situation. It's the perception in Orthodox Church and maybe in Russian society. From one side, Holy See, as in the period of Pope Francis and other popes, just following their just normal policy of Vatican, and following the concept of positive neutrality. It's just natural concept for Vatican to be inside this concept of positive neutrality. So just to be over ideologies and over the sides of conflict, but to be involved in humanitarian actions. But from another view, in public actions, speeches, and meetings of Pope Leo, he speaking only with Ukrainian side. Just in the first maybe months of his pontificate, he has very neutral position, and then he began to speak only with Ukrainian side. It's just perception of some Russian experts and also Orthodox Church, and it's the lack of such maybe outstanding steps as Pope Francis did when he had online talk with Patriarch Kirill, for example, in February or in March, just 4 years ago. It was very outstanding step, and I think that is very important to understand. As Ivana said, what we just want to see or just to imagine, and I'm sure that Christians they know what world they want to have. As Saint Francis just knew very well what world he wanted to have with what people and how to build relations between people. So I think that certainly there are some obstacles, but there are hopes, and certainly I think that Christians, Orthodox, Evangelicals, Catholics, they could overcome these obstacles and to have just even inside this conflict situation and the Ukrainian crisis, we have opportunity to build a parallel with a space for discussion and for peace.
Thank you, Roman. And now, Ivana, you want to add something on these topics?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I really agree and appreciate Professor Cohen's statement and even the brief chat comment that Alexei Gromyko added. I think at this moment, to me, that essential first step of ending, whether we call it Ukrainian war, Ukrainian crisis, doesn't matter. It's about ending it. That is so clearly the essential first step. I mean, I think there's really, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but there's, to me, kind of beautiful symbolism in us meeting at this fourth anniversary, on this fourth anniversary. It's just devastating to think that this could have been avoided, to think of all the lives lost on both sides, to think of the damage and destruction, and the continuing threat of nuclear war that has come with all of this. So I completely agree that that is the clear, essential first step. In the meantime, rebuilding trust, rebuilding communications, trying to open up those channels of dialogue and discussion, as of course our hosts from Italy are doing right now, is just, it has to happen, and it has to happen even more than it is happening so far. I'd like to imagine that we will not be, commemorating the 5th anniversary next year. I would say that one people in a durable, sustainable, meaningful way. To me, even though I'd like to imagine just a world free of nuclear weapons, and I'd like to imagine all UN member states being party to the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the first step has to be bilateral agreements between the United States and Russia. That is just absolutely critical. It's not only logical, given the sizes of the arsenals and comparing them to everybody else. It's obviously not, you're not going to bring a North Korea with 50 or 60 nuclear warheads to a negotiating table while you maintain over 5,000 nuclear warheads. And similarly, China has said, even though President Trump keeps repeating that this has to be trilateral between US, Russia, and China, China still has on the order of 10% of the other two arsenals. And they have repeatedly said they're not coming to that negotiating table until US and Russia make more progress. The opportunity to either extend New START under the current limits, or to actually preferably do something more than that, is obviously there. And that has to be, I guess, the first step in disarmament. But again, we've identified an absolutely essential first precondition for that. So yeah, let me end there.
Thank you, Ivana. Last but not least, Thomas, you endorsed already this proposal from Arnold, and then you can add some words on that and your position, your opinion.
Well, I think Arnold has the right idea, but is speaking about really a public position that this group should take. And I would suggest, now I'm not an expert on the Vatican or the role you have with the Vatican, but I would suggest for consideration, you also think about private message as well as a public message. Because I think, given Trump's nature, the Pope has a real chance of steering him in the right way by just picking up the phone and talking to him and saying the right words. I don't think Trump can handle something as long as Arnold's summary, but I think if the private message were one point out of that summary, I think if it came from Pope Leo directly to Trump, it could have a significant impact. And so I would just, my suggestion, and it's a suggestion, is to consider having try to initiate a private channel of communication on one single issue between the Pope Leo and President Trump. Thank you.
Thank you. So I leave the floor to the President, Mr. Giuseppe Rotunno, for a last round of questions to the speaker. And thank you for your cooperation, your speech, your participation. Thank you. Please. Please. Okay.
Now, I want to speak about of the strong position that the Vatican is preparing about this nuclear disarmament. And the item that Arnold declared in synthetic way, but we can reach with other description more large of any one of the item. We can bring this position to the top of Vatican. That is not only the Pope Leo that you have heard in Vigilia of expire of a new start, and also in the message of the 1st January for peace. It was very, very hard about this item, Pope Leo. And now there is the possibility that our proposal with the line of Arnold will keep very, very important for Vatican. And in these 2 months before the TNP review conference in New York, because it's very important that the 5 power, nuclear power, must arrive there with a
common declaration,
a mutual agreement about the strong decision between Russia and US in a new disarmament agreement. And the Vatican can help about this synergy strong beginning US and Russian, but also with other 3 all 5 other 3 nuclear powers in ONU Council, Security Council. In so way, they can, the nuclear power can be available for all the world about about nuclear control treaties and the strong of TNP again. Well, so way we can we want to bring the results of these items with Arnold that and we can bring to the top of the Vatican. That is Pope, but also the other representative of Vatican in IAEA, in Vienna, in Geneva, in other international meetings, and also in the other conference of Prohibition Treaty in November. Yes, so way. Well, now there is the last round.
Last question is, but in some way you already replied to this question, was this one. What religious association can do in these 2 months before the review conference of April 27th to try to revive the spirit of New Start and move nuclear states to make a common declaration on Article 6 of the NPT, like what has been done on January 2022 before the war? So this is the final round, I think, for your opinion. And then we ask your help, as Mr. Rotunno said, to prepare a common declaration to be brought to the Pope in order to Vatican can in some way endorse this declaration coming from Assisi, from today, from here to the world, let's say. And so the question is this one: what doing these 2 months missing to the conference, review conference? Please, maybe Arnold first.
Well, let someone else go first. I want to think a little more.
I'm happy to go if that would be helpful. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so at the NPT review conference, I already know that there is an effort, this basically happens at all of these NPT meetings. There's an effort to have an interfaith statement. So that is just bringing different religious and spiritual movements together. I would be very happy to put you in touch. I actually know people who are involved in this, and I'd be very happy to put anyone from this group in touch with them just to help craft that statement. I think that process hasn't officially started, but it certainly will be underway. The Holy See is, as an observer state, is a party to the NPT and attends those meetings as well. I personally think that hopefully in the very near future, Pope Leo XIV would come to the United Nations. I think not only is nuclear disarmament under threat, the United Nations as a whole, on a whole host of issues, is under threat. And I think Pope Leo XIV appearance here would be incredibly meaningful and important. And if he chose to do that in the context of nuclear disarmament, whether, for example, if he delivered the Holy See statement at the NPT, that would make the news. That would be covered by major media. Another opportunity, if April and May are too soon for him, given what I can only imagine is a very, very busy schedule, the end of November is a little further out. It's November 30th to December 4th is the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons first review conference. And if he were to show up for that, that would actually elevate that treaty and those efforts to really actually ban nuclear weapons. So I think if, an element of what we recommend here were to be that Pope Leo, comes to New York, and of course he's coming home because he's a U.S. citizen. Well, I guess I don't know how that works. Is he still a U.S. citizen? Anyway, let me stop. Arnold seems to want to add something.
Look, I don't mean to be negative, but the Vatican has already stated emphatically that the Pope is not coming to the United States this year, full stop.
Okay.
He has reasons for not doing it because of the election. He doesn't want to be used in any way. He has already announced heavy travel in Africa and other places. And I think he does not want to be used as an American in this situation. I think my sense is he said what he's going to say as far as that's concerned. I think that they certainly will be doing advocacy surrounding the NPT. I have no idea what they'll be doing about the prohibition, the ban treaty. I just don't know.
Well, the Holy See has been absolutely wonderful on the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. They signed and ratified it the first day that was possible, and Pope Francis was a big supporter. So that part stands.
Yeah, well, no, that's fine. I mean, the thing is about the Pope's actual presence. They've made it clear. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this. A biography has just come out about the Pope. It's actually an American journalist who works for a authoritative Catholic news service, and she's the only journalist. She's the only journalist that has had any interview whatsoever with the Pope. So that information came out through those channels over the past couple of weeks. Number one, that he is not going to go. Number two, it went a step further because there was a piece in a liberal Catholic newspaper. I think this is the National Catholic Reporter, but it was one of those, but definitely this was the case. The Pope did make his statement on, as we know, on New Start. And so he did do that. What he has done around the same time, and this just has been going on for the past month or two, is he has stopped making any spontaneous statements to the press, full stop. He does not want to be in a situation, I don't think they've said that, but there were cases, a number of cases under Pope Francis, where Pope Francis was asked different things and he departed from the agreed language. And so whatever the case is, the Pope now has not even been saying anything spontaneous with respect to other issues. Now, but in any case, the fundamental issue is the trip to the United States. And this isn't me saying it, this is public record information. If one Googles this and looks around, one will see 2 or 3 articles, maybe not even that, but certainly from authoritative sources saying this isn't going to happen this year. It could happen.
Thank you so much. Thank you for clarifying. That's really helpful. Thank you. But hopefully in the future, I do hope that he comes to the United Nations.
I'm sure he will, but it's a very, I'm sure he will, but I think that it is an issue and it's complicated with respect. I mean, you were talking about American voting, and a lot of Americans voted for Trump, et cetera. And I mean, whether we like it or not, a lot of American Catholics voted for Trump. And so it's a case, I'm not sure how that factors into the question of what the Pope will or will not do. I think it's a matter of not wanting, it was made clear he does not want to be around during the election year. He does not want to be drawn into the election in any way, shape, or form. And I think that certainly these issues are important to us, and they are important to them in terms of New Start and other things. You know, whether to make a statement on New Start or NPT warrants the Pope coming to the United Nations General Assembly, I don't think they would believe that's the case. I think that this is just, this is something that's generally done by the Vatican Foreign Minister or the Secretary of State, but I don't know that they would send a new Pope there. I mean, at this point, he's new, he's young, and he's going to be around a long time. And one of the things that the late General Burns used to say, I was very friendly with him, but he would say that, the Vatican never thinks in terms of election cycles. They think in terms of what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years. And so I think that there will be things that will take place, but it simply could be warranted. It simply could be said that intervention by the Vatican is not really warranted beyond a certain level under these circumstances in which you have a very, very iffy situation between Trump and Putin and the war and all these things, that there may be a better time to do it. So I think whatever the case is, we should be mindful of this. And also, frankly, I'm not sure how much the Vatican at this point really wants to be told by NGO groups what they ought to be doing, because I think that this is feedback that I've had from other sources that have nothing to do with this group, that it's just a case that I think the situation is very dicey in terms of what's happening in Europe with NATO, with other things, and with immigrants, with other questions. with right and left and so on and so forth. And I think they simply don't want to really get in the middle of this, and they will do things, but they'll sort of do them in their own way. As I said, I recommend that there be something supporting what the Pope said on February 4th, at the minimum, something like that. I've had some language people could circulate it. I don't claim in any way, shape, or form that what I said was the last word. It was a little draft. I was asked for a little draft, and I gave a little draft. But there are other things that could be added to it. But it's a matter of what they really, care to be told at this stage. And I know that, again, and there's a question now also going on about the differences between, say, Pope Francis and this Pope in terms of engagement with groups and so on and so forth. I don't think that's been decided. I mean, he hasn't been around that long. It's just not very long at all that he's been in office. And so I think let's just wait and see. In any case.
Thank you, Arnold. Now I think that Mr. Rotunno wants to involve also the other speaker, which is who is connected with us. Please, Giuseppe.
If it is possible, dear Dennis, that you listen all to in this speaking. Do you want to give your brief consideration about this? Dennis Frado.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Because you know the religion's position. No, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I really don't have a lot to add beyond endorsing what my colleague Arnold has said. I think we have to be very circumspect in terms of what we might be suggesting to the Vatican, since they have their own channels that they work through. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. Now, as you know, the Vatican is not only the Pope, the Cardinal Parolin, and the Cardinal Gallagher, but the Vatican is more large of these three main top leader, and they and Pope Leo, that we know is not a nuclear professional, and do a very effective speech about a new start, no? Because there are around him people that accept the technical evaluation that we bring, and Pope Leo is a speech about. Because the top of Vatican has the contribution of different people, and also Civiltà dell'Amore is one of these. Because they have a high consideration of the items, the question that we put to them, and they after elaborate as diplomatic way, but they understand what we other non-clerical people do and bring to them. Yes. And we hope that the other work that is a very, as a proposal of Arnold, is a very very effective items, they will understand very good our proposal and bring in a diplomatic initiative to arrive to very contribution of Vatican for nuclear disarmament in the trade, the TNP and the TPA, a prohibition treaty also. We have in the conference of today many Christian Catholic movements. Have you listened the Franciscan people before with Mary Stronach from Boston? You listen also Sant'Egidio Foundation, and there are other Focolarini, other international movement of Catholic people that are working more deeply in these nuclear disarmament urgent questions. And they also, with us, work in Vatican about this. We are not alone, only Civiltà dell'Amore. Today there are also other associations, as a Assisi Strategic Forum, etc., that work, and these in Vatican are very important, not only Civiltà dell'Amore, but also the other people. These other Catholic movements are working about this. And so way, Pope Leo don't listen only one voice, they listen many voices, and in so way he do the different speech. No one of us was prepared to listen the hard words that Pope Leo explained in 4th February about a new start. We are not prepared for this, but he received our information and do that strong speech in 4 February. Yes, because the Christian, as Roman said, no, the Christian people work in very hard way, and the results arrives also. Well,
yes, I think that in conclusion we could repeat what have been the points underlined by Arnold to be included in our final declaration from here, from Assisi. So the points are the following. Especially in view of the expiration of the New START treaty between the United States and Russia, we should bear in mind the practical steps that could have a positive impact on the present international situation. First, we should encourage President Trump and President Putin to give priority to reducing the risk of nuclear war, including by working together to develop mutual restraints of the nuclear forces of the United States and Russian Federation, rather than engaging in unrestrained nuclear arm competition. Second, such mutual restraints could include commitments to not increase the total number of nuclear weapons in the military arsenals of the United States and the Russian Federation. Second, declare a moratorium of deployment of nuclear-armed INF missiles in Europe. Third, not test or deploy orbital nuclear weapons. Nor incorporate artificial intelligence into decision-making processes for command and control of nuclear weapons. work together to prevent the proliferation of nuclear weapons, keep President Xi in China informed on the steps President Trump and President Putin are taking to reduce the risk of nuclear war. A fundamental question is encouraging an end to the fighting in Ukraine, which would also facilitate consideration of mutual restraints between the United States and the Russian Federation on nuclear arms, as we have just heard from the speakers. So this is the points, and on these points we are going to prepare a final declaration for this meeting. I hope that the speakers are agree, and I leave the floor to whoever wants to add something on that. Arnold, I think maybe. Arnold.
I have to go to another appointment in 5 minutes. What I would propose, and I'm very grateful to everyone here for their comments, I would propose that we get a draft copy of whatever is being considered in the same way that we did in September. We work on this for as long as it takes to get this done. I mean, this is not the setting to continue to work on a draft statement. I think they're just different things that we have to consider.
Yeah, thank you.
But I do have to go in about 5 minutes.
Other speakers want to add some?
Maybe I could add just one provision, because we so many discussed the role of Christian churches and also of Vatican, and I think we have to mention the just provision about that nuclear disarmament just have to be one of the key elements of interconfessional dialogue or inter-Christian dialogue, just to establish this dialogue and this atmosphere of peace. Because as Orthodox, certainly I'm thinking about the future dialogue of Orthodox and Catholic Church, Orthodox and Catholics, and I just see the lack of just grounds for mutual discussion, the crisis of inter-religious institutions also in Europe, for example, because there is no such discussions in the World Council of Churches, and so on. And just because of that, I mentioned this just experience of Christian Peace Conference in Europe and Soviet times. So we just we have a lack of such grounds for discussion, and at the same time very problematic political context, because for example our foreign minister Lavrov, he just reacting on the suggestion of Pope Leo to have negotiations in Vatican. Our foreign minister Lavrov said that it will be incorrect to have negotiations and meetings in Catholic state for Orthodox from Ukraine or for Orthodox from Russia. And also just another problematic question is discrimination of Orthodox Church in Ukraine, Moldova, and the Baltic states. And for example, in Russia, we have a Christian interconfessional committee with different Christian churches that existed in Russia. And just a month ago, this Christian committee just adopted the appeal about the discrimination of Orthodox Church in Ukraine, Moldova, and Baltic states, but Russian Catholic Church didn't sign this declaration about discrimination of churches for political reasons. So in such a complicated situation, certainly we need just not only maybe appeals or documents from Vatican, but also this discussion. And that is important also because Moscow Patriarchate, for example, Russian Orthodox Church, will not support the document that will be only from Vatican. It will be more easy to support some appeals, documents, and discussion meetings on neutral in neutral places and institutions.
Thank you,
Yes.
Roman. Maybe Ivana or
Yeah, no, let me just add one more thought, completely taking everything that Roman just said. I understand and I agree that it's highly complex and one wants to be careful and sensitive and so on. But let me just add in terms of the historical precedent. I mentioned the negotiations between President JFK, John F. Kennedy, and his counterpart Nikita Khrushchev, and the partial test ban treaty. And Pope John the 23rd actually played a critical role in enabling that communication. So I think we want to draw on that historical precedent. Whether it's at this stage where we all agree the issue of Ukraine is first and foremost, or whether it's hopefully at the next stage where we can begin to talk again in serious ways about arms control and disarmament.
Okay, thank you, Ivana. Someone else or Thomas? Your opinion about?
Yes, I have nothing to add.
Okay, so maybe we can go to a conclusion and finish the round table. Giuseppe.
Well, we can arrive to some conclusion. We have arrived some proposal. We are arrived. We are arrived to a strong determination to give our contribution for nuclear disarmament, nuclear peace, nuclear conversion, and we hope that the review conference of TNP is a milestone for all the peace, and so we can work with our suggestion of today, etc., and to arrive to that conference with a new position of US and Russian first, and also other nuclear power, and also in Ukraine effects of the agreement between nuclear power, because the peace in Ukraine will be a good results. Also, there is one new work about a nuclear disarmament, because this is a main key of a peace of the world. We Catholic people, but not only Catholic, and we told we want keep the proposal of Roman of a European conference, Christian European conference about nuclear disarmament. In so way, the Europe that is living a very difficult political situation behind the nuclear control, nuclear threat. The Christian in Europe may be very useful to do a strong way for nuclear disarmament. As a Christian in Europe, and because the Europe is, we remember the first actor of the nuclear war in the world. And this will stop, not third world, Europe, no third world, global world, no. And the Christian in Europe, beginning from nuclear arms, will begin a de-escalation, non-escalation, with the strong of Christian of Europe, because Europe stop the nuclear war. Two nuclear war is enough. And we, as a Christian in Europe, don't want a third world again. No. The Christian Europe, no. Okay. This is clear. This is clear for Vatican, for Orthodoxy, and for Reformed Church, for all are together on this line. Stop the third world. No. Europe, stop. And nuclear, stop. Boss. All right. And we work from Rome, from Assisi, from other main city in Europe in so way. We want also your suggestion, your help in this work. I hope. Arnold.
Giuseppe, I'm sorry, I have to go. Everyone, I'm very grateful. Ivana, Thomas, Roman, Dennis, of course, Massimo, and General Giuseppe, if he's there. I thank you very much. I would ask, please, if you could send me a copy of the video of Cardinal Patriarch Pizzaballa, which I'm sorry, I had a medical appointment this morning and I was unable to attend. If you could somehow send me this, it would help my thinking for the next steps to get a copy of this. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
I was going to say travel safely back to New York, but you're in New York. So anyways, thank you.
Well, e adesso noi andiamo alla proposta forte di conversione nucleare che come civiltà dell'amore abbiamo lanciato 30 anni fa quasi, no? Con Giovanni Paolo II, e che poi è diventato il progetto Megatons to Megawatts, e adesso noi confidiamo di fare un secondo grande lancio, cioè con il disarmo nucleare si apre una stagione di sviluppo straordinario, quindi di relazioni, di costruzione e sviluppo straordinario, come c'è stato quando è stato firmato il primo accordo nell'87, di cui anche padre Polidoro stamattina ci ha raccontato, no? Ci ha fatto la testimonianza. E quindi chiederei al nostro carissimo ingegnere Angelo Papa di poter venire qui ad illustrarci per sommi capi, perché noi sappiamo che il programma Megatons to Megawatts che abbiamo proposto noi, no? Che anche Cochrane, è un programma che ha avuto un impatto per 20 anni su tutto il campo nucleare mondiale, cioè c'è stato un input così forte economico, finanziario, che ha convinto indirettamente i finanziatori, il mondo industriale americano di fare il doppio di quello che il programma aveva stabilito di fare. E noi sappiamo tutti che quando una scolaresca decide di fare doppi compiti di quelli che gli sono stati dati, vuol dire che è una scolaresca felice, no? Quindi vuol dire che ha raggiunto il top della soddisfazione. Quindi noi oggi vogliamo rilanciare questa nuova stagione, anche con delle slide velocemente, eccetera, però per far capire che la proposta forte del disarmo nucleare, al di là degli accordi, le cose, i pezzi di carta che sono fondamentali, no? La fiducia, l'ascolto, ci sono i numeri fortissimi dell'economia poi dentro, e quelli che poi cambiano anche la storia, no? E noi come civiltà dell'amore, come tecnici, noi abbiamo puntato a questi risultati estremamente concreti che il disarmo nucleare il nuovo disarmo nucleare, che ci auguriamo il più rapidamente possibile, deve portare a tutti. È un beneficio straordinario per tutti. Ecco. Grazie, ingegner Angelo. Allora.
Parlo in italiano, va bene, no?
Italiano.
Proietti in inglese? Proietti in italiano.
Sì, tu parli in italiano.
Ok.
In inglese per quelli là, dai.
Buon pomeriggio e buonasera a tutti. Prima di tutto vorrei far capire e evidenziare perché c'è tutto questo interesse per la parte nucleare, per l'energia nucleare. Bisogna andare proprio alle fonti per giustificare tutto il movimento nazionale e internazionale che a partire dalla scoperta di Enrico Fermi ha voluto portare avanti questa tecnologia. Se mi manda la prima slide. Questa riassume in pratica tutto l'interesse mondiale. Dietro questi numeri ci sono dei calcoli molto precisi, io do soltanto i risultati finali. Se andiamo a paragonare le materie prime per l'energia, tenendo presente che l'energia non si produce, ma l'energia si trasforma, quindi quella che c'è va utilizzata trasformandola. Le energie finora utilizzate, anzi non finora, fino al 1950 utilizzate, erano olio combustibile, adesso è venuto fuori anche l'idrogeno, all'inizio c'era il carbone, ma andiamo a vedere perché c'è questo tipo di attenzione. 1 chilogrammo di uranio 235 o di plutonio, sono equivalenti in linea di massima, equivale a 2000 tonnellate di olio combustibile. Quindi dire, riesco ad avere una concentrazione energetica talmente alta che mi fa incuriosire e andare a vedere ma perché, come possiamo usarla. In questa equivalenza, oltre alle 2000 tonnellate di olio combustibile, sarà fatto un calcolo che sempre 1 chilogrammo di uranio equivale a 600 tonnellate di idrogeno. Però per capire meglio l'utilizzo, io ho riportato anche i volumi. 1 chilogrammo di uranio è un cubetto di 50 centimetri cubi. 2000 tonnellate è un volume di 2000 metri cubi. 600 tonnellate di idrogeno sono 7 milioni di metri cubi di gas, perché noi siamo abituati a vedere l'idrogeno come con un volume piccolo, ma attenzione, a meno 250 gradi centigradi, ma per utilizzare l'idrogeno lo dobbiamo portare a temperatura ambiente, e a temperatura ambiente 600 tonnellate di idrogeno occupano 7 milioni di metri cubi di gas. Voglio evidenziare che in base a queste equivalenze c'è un grosso interesse anche per le risorse energetiche. Una nazione normalmente, anzi assolutamente, ha delle risorse tali da poter fornire energia ai propri abitanti anche per motivi non solo di crisi internazionali, ma anche per motivi che esulano dagli scontri internazionali. Questo vuol dire che se io voglio avere energia di riserva con l'olio combustibile o con il gas come si fa oggi, ho bisogno di enormi volumi di magazzino, enormi. Non solo, pur essendo enormi, al massimo durano 60 giorni, 90 giorni. Se invece io mi faccio una riserva energetica con uranio o il plutonio 235, in questa stanza abbiamo energia per 10 anni. Non serve di più, perché i volumi che si rapportano come densità energetica, la densità energetica degli isotopi uranio e plutonio sono milioni di volte della densità energetica dei combustibili che fino ad oggi abbiamo utilizzato. Per farvi un esempio ancora pratico, vi faccio vedere una cosa che andava di moda quando anche in Italia si faceva il nucleare. Questo cubetto di 1 centimetro di diametro e 1 centimetro d'altezza, riesce a fornire energia per un anno a tutta una famiglia. Cioè riesce a fornire energia elettrica a tutta una famiglia per un anno. Stiamo parlando di questo volume, neanche si vede. Allora, sì, ma a questo punto la domanda è, sì, ma quante scorie produce? E anche qui c'è una risposta degna della densità energetica. Perché in un anno tutta l'energia elettrica prodotta da quel cubetto ha come rifiuti 3 palline come queste, che adesso vi faccio vedere. Questo è proprio il modo di far capire che non c'è che il problema delle scorie non esiste. È semplicemente un problema, di decisioni strategiche a livello nazionale. A questo punto, allora andiamo a vedere però come si fa. Abbiamo detto, prendiamo le testate nucleari, le utilizziamo per fare energia a scopo pacifico, ma come si fa? È stato fatto e Civiltà dell'Amore lo fa anche meglio. E questo, ce ne vantiamo, ovviamente. Quindi se mi manda la seconda slide, mi alzo un attimo in piedi perché così riesco a farvi vedere meglio. Noi partiamo dall'uranio che sta nella miniera. L'uranio che sta nella miniera ha una percentuale di uranio 235 pari al 7 per 1000, quindi devo avere un'enorme quantità di materiale estratto nella miniera per avere questa concentrazione che per poter essere utilizzata nei reattori, quindi nelle centrali nucleari, la devo portare al 5%. Quindi devo andare dallo 0,07, devo arricchire il materiale al 5%. Dopodiché posso andare nella manifattura e fare il combustibile che si fa oggi, combustibile a ossido di uranio, con la percentuale del 5% di uranio. Come posso utilizzare quello contenuto nelle testate nucleari? Le testate nucleari hanno preso sempre uranio 235 nella miniera. Io qui non ho fatto più la riga, ma lo hanno arricchito al 93 o al 95%. Quindi da qui è per farvi capire che per esplodere, nuclearmente parlando, un ordigno ho bisogno del 95% di uranio 235. Una centrale ne usa il 5%. Quindi una centrale, nuclearmente parlando, non può esplodere, gli manca l'esplosivo. È evidente, ma analogamente per il plutonio. Quindi gli incidenti che possono avvenire nelle centrali nucleari sono incidenti termici, non incidenti nucleari. Che poi l'incidente termico possa trasportare ciò che incontra per la strada dentro l'impianto è un altro discorso, ma non è un'esplosione nucleare, è un'esplosione termica. Per spiegarvi tutto ci sarebbe da fare qualcosa con 3-4 ore di lezione, ma insomma non è questo il momento. Allora, partiamo dalle testate nucleari, abbiamo visto che hanno il 93-95%. Poi c'è nel fissile militare quello di cui si è parlato prima, che è pronto per fare altre 50.000 testate nucleari e sta nei magazzini, però è pronto. Allora io prendo il 93-95% della testata, lo mando in una fabbrica, in una industria, che lo diluisce con lo 0,007, quindi lo 7 per 1000 di quello naturale, lo diluisce anche con l'uranio depleto. Che cos'è l'uranio depleto? È l'uranio che dall'arricchimento viene messo nei magazzini. Oggi sta nei magazzini. In questo caso invece io lo utilizzo per fare la diluizione del fissile che si trova nelle testate. Porto il tutto al 5%, vado nella fabbrica del combustibile e tiro fuori un nuovo combustibile che si chiama MOX, cioè è un combustibile a ossidi misti formato da ossido di uranio e ossido di plutonio. Ecco dove nasce la possibilità di distruggere anche le testate nucleari che oggi sono armate con il plutonio. Ma il plutonio dove sta? Il plutonio in natura non esiste. Il plutonio esiste soltanto come scoria, chiamiamola scoria, come sottoprodotto di una centrale nucleare che una volta che ha prodotto energia elettrica, questo combustibile che è entrato al 5% per poter fornire energia elettrica, quando viene scaricato ha ancora il 2,5%. Quindi attenzione, è un fatto, da qui ho combustibile al 2,5%, qui ce l'ho al 7 per 1000, quindi al limite io posso anche riutilizzare questa scoria, la rimetto nella diluizione e produco nuovi elementi di combustibile per centrali nucleari. Qual è la novità che stiamo evidenziando? Che c'è una economia circolare, cioè il combustibile si riprocessa. Questo vuol dire che le riserve mondiali oggi valutate intorno a 300 anni, chi dice 500, c'è tutta una teoria un po' strana, cioè i 300 anni sono riferiti al combustibile uranio 35 che sta al 7 per 1000, ma l'uranio è l'elemento più diffuso in natura, ce l'abbiamo anche nel giardino di casa, senza allarmismi, non succede nulla, perché anche nell'acqua di mare c'è uranio naturale, con riserve spaventose, per sempre. Non è al 7 per 1000, è il più basso, sta intorno al 3-4, quindi oggi costa un po' di più per tirarlo fuori rispetto a quello delle miniere. Per inciso, siccome il combustibile in una centrale nucleare va a pesare sulla bolletta per il massimo il 10%, massimo, anche se io all'origine spendo 3 volte quello che mi costa attualmente quando tiro fuori il 7 per 1000, la bolletta non aumenta, perché non ha nessuna incidenza. Il costo del combustibile in una centrale elettrica, combustibile nucleare in una centrale elettrica, incide pochissimo sul costo finale dell'energia elettrica. In base a tutte queste considerazioni capite bene qual è l'interesse assolutamente sociale, economico e mondiale di fornire energia tramite una centrale nucleare. C'è un'altra piccola cosa che forse è il caso di chiarire. Questo viene chiamato combustibile, ma non brucia. Il combustibile, l'olio combustibile brucia, il carbone brucia, fa la fiamma, il gas brucia, fa la fiamma. Il combustibile non brucia. Ma allora come fa a produrre calore? E qui è la novità della natura, grazie a chi ci ha creato, che si produce calore senza fiamma, ma esclusivamente per farvi capire meglio, per trasformazione di energia cinetica, cioè di velocità, in calore. Un esempio banale: se voi guidate una macchina e andate a 100 all'ora, a un certo punto frenate, quella energia l'avete dispersa, perché avete fermato la macchina, e il calore dove è andato? Sui freni. Infatti le pasticche dei freni diventano calde. Ecco la trasformazione senza bruciare, senza fiamma, fra produzione energia e calore. Quindi a questo punto si evitano, rispetto all'ambiente, l'emissione di milioni e milioni e miliardi di tonnellate di CO2 che, secondo le teorie di oggi, sono il veleno dell'ambiente in cui viviamo. Quindi, utilizzando energia nucleare, non si... Non voglio entrare troppo nei dettagli tecnici, però è per farvi proprio vedere visivamente questa cosa. Quindi questa produzione di calore avviene perché tante particelle, e poi questo vi dico quante sono, tante particelle vengono emesse da questa separazione dell'uranio, come abbiamo visto nel filmato precedente, vengono emesse, si trovano all'interno della struttura, vengono frenate da tutte le particelle vicine, perdono l'energia, la cedono agli altri e il tutto si scalda. Ecco qual è il processo nucleare, tanto famoso e diffamato, tra l'altro. Ora, da un punto di vista radioattivo, ciò che è pericoloso sono i prodotti della fissione, che però hanno tutto un procedimento particolare, ma veramente particolare, per cui dal reattore nucleare non esce praticamente nulla. È la prima industria che si è preoccupata di non far uscire nessun sul residuo che possa danneggiare l'ambiente, perché viene tutto raccolto, come se volessimo raccogliere le miliardi di tonnellate di CO2 che escono da una centrale termica. Quello non si può fare. Si può ridurre, si può mettere i filtri, ma sempre miliardi di tonnellate sono. Qui invece viene tutto messo dentro dei fusti e isolati dall'atmosfera. E questa è l'altra novità dell'energia nucleare rispetto all'energia che oggi viene chiamata convenzionale. A questo punto, quindi, noi possiamo bruciare le testate, perché una volta che io ho utilizzato il 95% dell'uranio o del plutonio che stava lì dentro e l'ho utilizzato per fare energia elettrica, la testata nucleare non c'è più. È stata, tra virgolette, bruciata. Non è vero che è bruciata, diciamo, è stata consumata per produrre energia elettrica e non c'è più. Quindi la security, quindi la sicurezza di non avere più le testate nucleari, non è quella di andarla a infilare dentro un fortino, dentro un box, una cosa, perché ci si può sempre entrare. Si è visto che in tutti i depositi altamente protetti, alla fine poi uno, se vuole entrare, entra. In questo caso non deve entrare da nessuna parte, perché dentro non c'è più. Quindi la testata nucleare non c'è più in questo modo, ed è l'unico modo che è stato inventato da Amardi e di cui, diciamo, dobbiamo fare onore. A valle di tutto questo ci sono degli enormi numeri di cui non entriamo nel dettaglio e che poi potrebbero interessare le industrie private, le industrie nazionali, le altre industrie, per poter giustificare il fatto che facendo energia elettrica con combustibile, con centrali nucleari, in pratica si risparmiano rispetto ad oggi, a bolletta ferma ovviamente, perché si risparmia un sacco di soldi. E la proposta che poi facciamo come civiltà dell'amore è l'utilizzo di questi risparmi. Se andiamo sulla prossima, su cui sorvoliamo un pochino, stiamo parlando di 13.000 testate nucleari oggi, più le altre 50.000 che stanno nei magazzini. Non sono ancora testate nucleari, ma il materiale è pronto. Stiamo parlando dal vecchio M2M, con 500 tonnellate di uranio sono stati fatti 6.500 terawattora che sarebbero bastati all'Italia per circa 12 anni, 15 anni. Gratis? Come combustibile sì, perché i costi di quel combustibile sono stati già ammortizzati dall'industria militare, quindi stati già pagati. Quindi a questo punto quel combustibile devo pagare solamente la manifattura, cioè il fatto di prenderlo, di diluirlo, che poi è già pronto, quindi la diluizione è abbastanza semplice. Non voglio esagerare, significa rimescolare della polvere da una parte e la polvere dall'altra parte e abbiamo fatto il combustibile con le testate, quindi è un costo abbastanza ridotto. Ma l'energia che se ne produce è enorme rispetto a questo che ho fatto vedere prima. Quelle sono 500 tonnellate di questo, quindi potete immaginare quanta energia proprio veramente viene fuori con un combustibile già pagato. Nella ultima slide vengo a riassumervi i vantaggi. Allora, vengono effettivamente eliminate le testate nucleari, come vi ho detto, non ci sono più, non esistono più. Non è possibile neppure rifarle con quel materiale. Bisogna ricominciare da capo nella miniera. perché non esiste più quel materiale. L'elettricità ovviamente a basso costo, perché ci manca un'estrazione dalla miniera, ci manca l'arricchimento, devo fare solo la diluizione, quindi risparmio nella linea industriale della produzione del combustibile, risparmio 2 o 3 passaggi molto costosi. Non solo, ma vado a risparmiare anche da un'altra parte, perché tutti quei materiali che adesso io tengo in magazzino, il magazzino non mi serve più, perché li utilizzo, quindi risparmio sulla sicurezza, risparmio sui costi dei magazzini, sulla manutenzione, perché quel materiale che sta nei depositi militari non è che non ha bisogno di manutenzione, specialmente il plutonio, dopo 4 anni bisogna pulirlo, perché si forma un isotopo che si chiama mericio, che va a diminuire le capacità energetiche di quel isotopo, del plutonio. Quindi ogni 4 anni va pulito per poterci fare poi le bombe atomiche. E in questo caso non serve più pulirlo, si utilizza, quindi si risparmia pure tutta quella manutenzione che in pratica oggi invece viene effettuata. Si risparmiano tutte le protezioni militari dei depositi, perché giustamente va protetto, quindi quei depositi vanno circondati dall'esercito, cioè non è che si può accedere così, in maniera molto semplice. Quindi tutti questi risparmi ce li andiamo poi a trovare sulla bolletta. Se la bolletta rimane costante, e già mi sembra un ottimo risultato, la differenza enorme si può utilizzare per che cosa? La civiltà dell'amore propone che una parte dei risparmi vengano utilizzati per incrementare e sviluppare nei paesi poveri, nei paesi in via di sviluppo, principalmente sono state fatte molte cose in Africa, se non ricordo male, e quindi si fa un'economia nel loro paese, e probabilmente si riesce ad evitare tutte le migrazioni che portano poi tanta infelicità e tanti morti che potrebbero essere evitati nella maniera più assoluta. Quindi anche questa parte economica recuperata va a favore dell'utilizzo di questo tipo di impianti. Si evitano, qui viene scritto milioni di tonnellate di CO2, ma milioni di tonnellate di CO2 ogni anno, perché gli impianti che ci sono adesso producono veramente decine e decine di milioni di tonnellate ogni anno di CO2. Questa esce dai cammini, in qualche modo si può filtrare, però alla fine va nell'ambiente, c'è niente da fare. Inutile che facciamo la cattura della CO2, la cattura di qua. Se la cattura la vado a mettere in un posto e quindi inquino quel posto in maniera per sempre. Quindi, è un po'. Adesso va fatto purtroppo perché c'è bisogno di farlo, ma cerchiamo di evitarlo. Quindi verrebbe evitato. Altro risparmio. E niente, l'orologio militare, il trattamento riduce, niente, praticamente vi ho detto tutto, io ho riassunto un po' questa cosa, tanto di sapere a memoria, però ecco, quindi vi ho voluto dare Se ci sono domande, fatele, perché è bene che sia ben chiaro nella opinione pubblica questa situazione energetica e di sfruttamento energetico che molte volte viene raccontata come un qualcosa che è catastrofica. Certo che l'utente finale, e penso alla popolazione che non ha una cultura di questo genere, cioè in Italia siamo rimasti una cinquantina di persone, non credo ce ne stanno di più, che sanno queste cose. Se vedono in televisione, quando fanno vedere una centrale nucleare, a fianco gli fanno vedere un'esplosione atomica, che pensa il cittadino? Che è pericoloso, allora esplode. Ecco, non è vero. Non c'è abbastanza, cioè non c'è per niente esplosivo, perché ce n'è il 5% invece del 95%. Andando con i nuovi reattori, adesso c'è la nuova generazione, reattori di quarta generazione, reattori veloci, reattori avanzati, piccoli, SMR, se ne parla, è la stessa cosa. Sono concezioni e fabbricazioni diverse di una stessa cosa. I reattori che ci sono oggi, quelli che vengono chiamati di seconda e terza generazione più, che sono sempre gli stessi con maggiori sicurezze, in linea hanno gli stessi principi, vengono usati per i reattori di SMR di quarta generazione e di altre generazioni di reattori chimici, ma sempre basati su questioni nucleari, che sono gli AMR. Nei reattori veloci, e questo è bene chiarirlo subito, non c'è il 5% di uranio, c'è il 20%, perché c'è un problema di fissione. Però nei reattori veloci viene utilizzato non solo il 35%, ma viene utilizzato l'uranio 38, che sarebbe il 97% di quello che esiste in natura. Quindi a quel punto le riserve energetiche aumenterebbero ancora di più, quindi diventano praticamente infinite. Questo è un po' quello che volevo comunicarvi. Spero di essere stato chiaro.
No. Ecco, allora abbiamo aperto il futuro, ma questo lo vivremo in futuro, d'accordo? Quindi ora siamo verso quindi questo scenario ampio della pace nucleare, no? Perché ve l'avevamo detto, adesso noi ci siamo soffermati sui numeri, abbiamo saltato, eccetera, eccetera, perché ogni numero coinvolge un'azienda dove lavorano 3.000 persone, quindi ogni numero, ogni cifra di quelle che diciamo. Quindi immaginate che tipo di impatto ha un discorso del genere, no? E quindi va visto e va fatto non in un quarto d'ora, 20 minuti, ecco. Ma però, ecco, il segnale forte in questa sala della spogliazione, no? San Francesco, quando si è spogliato, forse capiva che faceva una cosa radicale, no? Ma non avrebbe mai immaginato che dopo 800 anni da quel gesto, tante ispirazioni, tante vite, tante cose, tante intuizioni nuove sarebbero venute fuori, come anche gli eventi che stiamo vivendo qui ospiti proprio in questa sala. Quindi San Francesco ha fatto quel gesto lì, credeva che finisse lì la storia, no? E invece non è finita lì, è andata avanti. E così anche quello che facciamo adesso non è una storia che finisce qui, e quindi è una storia, come avete intuito, che si apre e andrà avanti. Ecco, grazie a Dio. Per cui sì.
Una cosa brevissima. In Italia siamo in questa situazione. Bisogna sbrigarci, che noi siamo anziani, quindi tutta l'esperienza che c'è stata fino ad oggi piano piano sta andando via. E allora invece di chiamare i tecnici dall'estero, facciamo con i tecnici italiani, facciamo i giovani e incrementiamo questa scuola in modo tale che saremo autonomi e quindi potremo decidere autonomamente quello che c'è da fare.
E a proposito di giovani, li abbiamo visti stamattina, no? Hanno preso l'impegno di portare questi argomenti che noi abbiamo approfondito in questo seminario, di portarlo nelle scuole, nelle università in Italia, no? Per far conoscere ai seminari anche lì questo valore etico, perché poi il discorso della pace, eccetera, ha un fondamento più profondo del semplice numerino, se così vogliamo. E questi giovani partiranno subito a marzo con una campagna nazionale insieme a Civiltà dell'Amore, guidata da Civiltà dell'Amore, per portare nei licei, nelle università, con la televisione, eccetera, con tutti i mezzi moderni, queste spiegazioni, queste informazioni, perché ne abbiamo bisogno tutti quanti. Ecco, grazie allora e andiamo alle nostre conclusioni. Eccellenza, allora, qui se vuole accomodarsi, vediamo qua, proprio a vedere. Ecco qua, togliatelo, ecco, venga qua, eccellenza, qui è casa sua, qui è casa sua.
Allora
Ecco, allora, eccellenza, tiriamo fuori le conclusioni di questa giornata, se vuole cominciare lei, l'arricchimento, le cose, il significato, l'impegno.
Ma io, come avete visto, ho potuto partecipare un po' a spizzico, ero adesso in un consiglio di amministrazione, pensate un po', l'ho abbandonato per ritornare più presto, dopo c'è una call, insomma la giornata qui ad Assisi è sempre travolgente. Da parte mia soltanto la gratitudine perché questo tema con tanta perseveranza viene continuamente riportato all'opinione pubblica ecclesiale e anche non. E sicuramente va fatto con determinazione e anche maggiore efficacia. E il fatto che dei giovani ci prendono anche loro un po' di passione in questa materia è un motivo di speranza. Ma intanto adesso quello che è importante è fare il nostro umile ma forte appello perché di fronte alle prospettive di una ulteriore tensione geopolitica che porti anche le menti dei responsabili delle potenze nucleari a fare scelte che potrebbero essere irreversibili. Ecco, è importante che come società civile, come comunità ecclesiale, noi diciamo il nostro no a questo scenario e diciamo il nostro sì a un cammino che ritorni intorno ai tavoli del dialogo con sentimenti e volontà di pace.
Ecco, certamente ci troviamo nella storia, no? Con questo evento di oggi, nella storia di adesso. Quindi possiamo dire che non siamo stati a guardare la televisione, no? I fatti. Ci siamo permessi di osare insieme dall'Atlantico agli Urali, no? di poter insieme mettere quelle forze sinergiche di propositività e progettualità forte, anche consistente, non solamente parole, ecco. Le abbiamo viste parole forti nei nostri pastori, no? Quindi a cominciare dal vescovo Sorrentino, no? A cominciare dal cardinale Pizzaballa, a cominciare che il cardinale Pizzaballa ha usato il linguaggio tecnologico nucleare per spiegare la spiritualità della conversione, no? Eccellenza, quindi ha osato fare questa originale prevaricazione di campo, ecco, e ha fatto molto bene perché ha dato una sollecitazione anche a noi. Abbiamo sentito la profonda riflessione della Mongolia, quindi che è una terra che si trova due confinanti, uno è la Cina e l'altro è la Russia, e lei è in mezzo, quindi la compagnia è garantita, ecco, quindi dal punto di vista nucleare, parlando sempre, quindi, e in più la Mongolia è stato l'ultimo luogo di grande raduno delle religioni mondiali con Papa Francesco, prima insomma, e proprio con il cardinal Marengo ha avuto. e quindi la forza delle religioni pure in mezzo a queste situazioni strategicamente vincolanti in cui si trovava la Mongolia. Quindi con la forza riconosciuta, no, ed è spinta dalle religioni, noi possiamo affrontare la sfida qui, tornando in Europa, tornando ad Assisi, che poi Assisi siamo capitati senza volerlo nel momento dell'ostensione del corpo di San Francesco dopo 800 anni, no, dalla morte. Quindi un momento di visibilità internazionale, ma non tanto estetica, ma di significato profondo. Com'è possibile un uomo che 800 anni fa si spogliava non in questa sala, ma in quella di sotto, dico bene, eccellenza, se potrà accompagnerà qualcuno a vedere il portico dove San Francesco è passato per non tornare più indietro, no? Noi l'abbiamo visto, eccetera. Perché quando si è spogliato è entrato nel vescovado, il papà l'ha salutato e è finita lì, per lui è finito il mondo, no? Ecco, quindi abbiamo potuto vedere come effettivamente la forza delle religioni arriva nei secoli, avanti, va alla grande. Quindi con questa forza noi abbiamo adesso il sacrosanto dovere di sollecitare non solo tutta la società civile, la Chiesa, ma l'Europa stessa. Ed è venuta fuori una proposta molto interessante dal dibattito degli esperti, dice perché non mobilitiamo la cristianità, e l'ha detto un ortodosso, un russo, no? La cristianità europea su questo discorso del disarmo e la conversione nucleare. Perché non muoviamo la cristianità europea? Perché purtroppo stiamo vedendo che l'Europa sta prendendo una strada altro che di disarmo nucleare. Quindi forse è la medicina d'urto che bisogna dare a questa Europa se non vuole finire alla terza guerra mondiale, che già ne ha fatte 2 e ne può fare pure la terza questi. Quindi effettivamente un richiamo forte è venuto anche dagli esperti, no? Che da loro a fare un lavoro forte sull'Europa, perché adesso purtroppo l'Europa è un cattivo scolaro, non è buono, è un cattivo scolaro e va messo in riga, nel senso umano del termine, no? Ecco, quindi lo sforzo di cristiani e delle chiese di lavorare anche proprio fortemente in Europa per questo disarmo e conversione nucleare. Adesso cominciamo con i giovani in Italia, però i giovani sappiamo che vanno a Francoforte, vanno in Francia, vanno in Inghilterra, sono collegati a livello europeo, possono dare un fermento europeo anche gli stessi giovani, e quindi magari coglieremo anche questo nelle risultanze. Poi c'è stata la proposta degli esperti di 7 punti centrali, dove il primo punto è riprendere assolutamente il disarmo tra Russia e America. L'hanno lasciato sospeso, ma ci hanno comunicato che sono in corso contatti. Anche Gromyko nel suo intervento ci ha detto che ieri a Vienna la delegazione russa e quella americana, Vienna è la sede dell'agenzia atomica, no? Dove si parla di atomica, si parla di cose atomiche. Lì. Ecco, le 2 delegazioni hanno parlato per poter, proprio sul discorso del disarmo nucleare, stanno riprendendo. Quindi il primo obiettivo che i 2 si ritrovino su una linea di disarmo nucleare effettivo, da potersi poi presentare all'appuntamento che il vescovo di Hiroshima, e non solo lui ma anche tutti gli altri, ci hanno dato a fine aprile, di arrivare alla conferenza di non proliferazione nucleare con una intesa di disarmo delle superpotenze, e quindi la Chiesa Cattolica potrà dare un notevole contributo. Gli esperti hanno molto apprezzato, hanno insistito molto sulla validità degli interventi che il Papa Leone, eccetera, hanno fatto per il New Start, per il 1° di gennaio, cioè hanno visto un movimento molto forte della Chiesa Cattolica sul disarmo nucleare e confidano che questo, anzi dicono che forse è il migliore interlocutore, il miglior Papa Leone, il migliore interlocutore per parlare di queste cose è Papa Leone, Papa Leone, la Chiesa Cattolica, insomma, hanno detto Papa Leone, loro hanno detto veramente. Quindi abbiamo sentito, no, Monsignore? Hanno detto diverse volte, quindi che può prendere le iniziative e parlare chiaramente con questi vertici apicali mondiali, ecco. Quindi una fiducia anche di questi esperti americani e russi a questo riguardo. Quindi, Eccellenza, accoglieremo questa fiducia corale nella forza della religione, ecco, cioè la forza morale che la religione può, anche in questo momento, e forse è l'unica che può esercitarla in modo positivo per portare avanti questi argomenti che sembrano solo di sopravvivenza umana, solamente tecnici, solamente di disperazione umana, e che ai grandi forse interessa poco. Ecco, Eccellenza, cosa dice?
Ma mi pare che sono tutte cose ragionevoli, belle, ispiranti e soprattutto da fare. L'interrogativo che io mi pongo è come fare ad allargare questa base di interesse perché non sia concepita come il pallino di una piccola realtà, di un gruppo di spiriti eletti che sognano senza tenere i piedi per terra. Quindi veramente per quanto riguarda la Chiesa di Assisi, ormai posso, con la mia esperienza, sicuramente garantire anche per il mio successore che il prossimo ingresso che non si tirerà indietro, ecco, rispetto a un tema così urgente è una vitalità ecclesiale che anche in questo si esprime e si qualifica. Ma bisogna allargare e trovare anche momenti efficaci, momenti di comunicazione. Stamattina avevamo qualche realtà comunicativa importante come la televisione, adesso non so quanto anche questo seminario viene veicolato anche sui social, c'è bisogno di mani esperte, ecco, il professor Giannone ci invita sempre a tutto questo, quindi mettere insieme la forza della comunicazione, farla diventare una forza nucleare di bene, perché riesce a fare quello che non riescono a fare, ecco, piccoli gruppi che parlano soltanto, ecco, tra di loro o con pochi altri. Ecco. Un libro come questo direi che è un libro veramente bello, bisognerebbe che fosse più conosciuto.
Lo presenteremo insieme.
Bene, bisogna che...
C'è padre Moroni che sta governando le migliaia di pellegrini che stanno arrivando da San Francesco, che è collegato con noi e ci vuole salutare. È possibile riprendere il collegamento? Ecco, grazie padre.
Buonasera a tutti.
Ciao.
Da parte mia un semplicissimo saluto. Ovviamente non ho potuto seguire i lavori di tutta questa giornata perché davvero qui siamo impegnatissimi su altri fronti importanti e belli, perché io spero che in molti mi hanno chiesto in questo clima mondiale come San Francesco, anche come questa esposizione, questa ostensione del corpo di San Francesco può aiutare. Io mi trovo molto disarmato nel rispondere a questo e speriamo di essere disarmati tutti su tutto, però che la testimonianza di San Francesco porti e anche in qualche modo il venire a contatto con la sua fragilità, con la sua nullità. Queste ossa sono davvero poca cosa, però ci aiuti a comprendere quanto l'uomo è davvero poca cosa e anche i potenti. E se questo forse fosse compreso più a fondo un po' da parte di tutti, forse davvero ci sentiremmo più soggetti e meno capaci di decidere sulle sorti di tutti e soggetti invece all'unica volontà, ecco, che è quella del Padre. Quindi davvero disarmati e disarmanti. Mi piace molto questo sottolineare da parte di Papa Leone con queste due parole una realtà che a mio parere è formidabile, cioè solo se siamo disarmati, cioè se lasciamo cadere ogni nostra sicurezza, ogni nostra arma di qualsiasi tipo, da quelle nucleari a qualsiasi altra, allora forse riusciremo anche a disarmare l'altro. Saremo talmente, ormai non saremo innocenti perché non lo siamo mai fino in fondo, però questa ricerca di una pace interiore e da diffondere penso che sia necessaria, quanto mai.
Bene, grazie.
Grazie Marco, grazie.
Allora chiederemo l'intercessione di San Francesco dopo
Certo.
800 anni, perché oggi anche lui ci aiuterebbe nel disarmo nucleare. Cosa dice? Ecco.
Certo, senza dubbio. E ci aiuterà.
Bene. Grazie di cuore e tanta preghiera con tutti i pellegrini. Grazie.
Grazie a voi altrettanto.
Ciao,
Grazie.
ciao.
Grazie Padre Vescovo, saluti
Ciao.
a tutti.
Bene, abbiamo mantenuto l'orario prefissato, quindi ringraziamo il Padre Eterno perché siamo arrivati, una giornata impegnativissima, perché abbiamo cominciato stamattina già prima. Ecco, salutiamo, mi ricordano tutti quelli che hanno avuto la pazienza di arrivare fino ad ora, compreso probabilmente il nostro amico anche a Washington o a New York che è intervenuto con noi prima e gli altri in Italia che sono rimasti in contatto con noi, perché questa sinergia, anche apparentemente lontana ma vicina di cuore, no? I migliaia di pellegrini sembrano lontani, ma sono tutti vicini, no? Hanno una forza straordinaria e così anche noi. Il Padre Eterno, lo Spirito Santo, la forza dello Spirito Santo, qual è? Quella che riesce a mettere insieme, pure a grandissima distanza, tante determinazioni e convinzioni di bene. Ecco, e quindi con un augurio.
Va bene.
Grazie.
Va bene. Tanti auguri, come no, la do volentieri a benedizione perché immagino che accolta con fede sia un modo di stare in intimità con tutta quanta la Chiesa, con la Chiesa militante, come una volta si diceva, e con la Chiesa trionfante che vediamo qui anche in qualche modo espressa da questo dipinto. Questo per chi non avesse colto il dipinto dell'indulgenza della Porziuncola. È San Francesco che mette le sue mani aperte al dono grande che gli fa Gesù attraverso Maria della indulgenza sovrabbondante, il perdono di Assisi che noi celebriamo ogni 2 di agosto. In questa sala è bello anche vedere la connessione con la spogliazione. La spogliazione di Francesco lo rende un nullatenente, fragile, senza famiglia, senza ricchezze, umanamente ormai un uomo senza potere. E qui diventa un economo della ricchezza divina, accoglie la ricchezza del perdono e la trasmette all'umanità. Questa trasformazione di energia della pochezza, della nullità in potenza divina, anche questa è qualcosa che ci fa immaginare la connessione con quanto avviene con la fissione nucleare. È una fissione nucleare dello spirito, è la conversione in cui i nostri egoismi esplodono e la potenza divina si innesta nella nostra piccolezza e fa un fungo di bene, non un fungo distruttivo. E vi benedica Dio Onnipotente, Padre e Figlio e Spirito Santo. Va bene, grazie per la vostra testimonianza e grazie di essere stati in questa sala mentre noi stavamo qua, oltre che alle ossa di San Francesco, anche centinaia e centinaia di pellegrini sono scesi giù e io ho detto, scendendo giù, deve essere uno scendere nel cuore, nella profondità del cuore, per sintonizzarsi con quanto qui è avvenuto e con la potenza di questa icona meravigliosa. Va bene? Tanti auguri, grazie.